Hello everybody, welcome back to Throttle Grotto. This week I'm working on the Datsun. I've got a few things that I've been working on, getting it ready for old school reunion. So today's project is restoring some old fog lights I bought off of eBay. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, I'm at a dead stop on the Rabbit. Even though I'm wearing my Rabbit sweatshirt, it still hasn't helped getting the Rabbit going. So I'm getting ready to take the Datsun to a show out here called Old School Reunion, and there's a few things I wanted to get done just to make it look more presentable. One is I wanted some old school fog lights on the front of the car, which turned out to be a little bit of a challenge because I want them in yellow. I want them to be a little crusty so they didn't look new. So I kind of have to make what I want. So I'll show you what I'm working with. Alright, so here's what I'm starting with. These are definitely some old school crusty fog lights. I've already had them apart one time. They use these tractor bulbs. I think these are called PAR 36s. We've got a couple little terminals there on the back for attaching wires to. And then sealed beam headlights, which are not yellow, which we're going to make yellow. And then the wiring in these is just kind of sad and crusty, but that's okay because the rest of them are sad and crusty and kind of look like the rest of the Datsun, which is sort of sad and crusty. So, but also most importantly, they're the right size. If you're going to buy fog lights for your Datsun Roadster, you have to take into account the where the hood opens up to. So these actually, without the bolt in the way, will sit down just nice enough that they don't hit the hood when it's open, which is kind of important. So that's a big win. Apparently they're made in Japan, so sort of okay to use on here. I mean, not that it would really matter. I'm not that much of a snob, but it'd be nice if I had some old Cibbies or Marshalls or something to match my Cibby headlights, but those are way too expensive. So thankfully, this isn't going to be a really difficult process. The most tedious, or I don't know, technical part of this whole process is going to be to turn these yellow. All right, so what I have to make this a little bit easier is this stuff here. Basically yellow stained glass paint, which should be pretty easy to apply to glass. Alright, so I'm just gonna wipe these down with some alcohol just to make sure there's hopefully nothing. Who knows what's on these headlights? They seem like they're pretty old. Alright, as you can tell, I've spared no expense with my outdoor painting platform here. It's pretty exquisite. It's, yeah, you can't just go out and buy stuff like this. Alright, so this amount of paint should probably do 7,000 or 8,000 fog lights, I'd imagine. But we're going to throw a couple coats on here and see how this looks. Alright, while we're waiting for the lenses to dry, we're going to go through and clean up and rewire these lights. Pretty simple task. I'm going to pull these things apart, just clean up the contact areas, clean up the bolts, because everything will ground through the housing. As you can see, there's not really a place in here for them to ground, so the wire will come out in hopefully a better fashion than it does on this one. Somebody just took the wire and wrapped it around the bolt, which can work, but we're just going to clean up all the mating surfaces so everything grounds really well, and then put them all back together and check them out. Alright, so one of the things I did too was I bent the little mounting brackets here so that I could mount the rusty part of the bracket facing forward instead of backward, just to give it a little more uniform look from the front. So the bracket would look like this from the front instead of seeing the back side of it. Just like a little detail thing, but pretty easy to do. Just put it in the vise and bend it a little bit. So fortunately, these are pretty easy to wire. Just some wire, some connectors, and then we can hook them up. All right, as I said, the wiring for these is super simple. Basically a positive lead that's going to go to the car, turn the lights on, a negative lead that goes to the bolt here, which basically grounds the light through to the car's frame or car's body. And that's really it. These are not complex. Let me go see if the yellow lenses are dry. Alright, so that's it. They're all reassembled. I think they actually look pretty nice for trying to keep them looking a little crusty and rough. So I think they're going to fit the Datsun pretty well and kind of match the patina of the car. So before I install them, I'm going to grab a battery and make sure that they actually work off the car. Because I don't know if the fog light wiring actually works in the car. So we've got a power probe now. We're just gonna clip that to ground to there, to the base. Shows that I've got ground through there. So that one works pretty good. And that one works pretty good too. And actually look pretty good lit up. They look like they kind of belonged that color. So I'm pretty pleased with how these turn out. Go throw them on the car and see how they look. All right, so the moment of truth. I think I've got them all hooked up now. And I'm going to go hit the switch, see if it turn on. Those actually turned out pretty good. I don't know if you'll be able to see the yellow color. There we go. Get down a little bit. It's a little bit bright, or a little bit lighter than the than the turn signal, but it's got good hood clearance there. So that's kind of what I was after. Something that looks like it had been on there for a long time, but was a nice yellow fog. All right, so that's it for this episode of Throttle Grotto. I was going to show you guys the new or old school side view mirror that I installed, and when I leaned over the side of the car, I broke it off. So I won't be showing you that, nor me breaking it off. But the fog lights turned out pretty good. I'm real happy with how they look on the car. Pretty happy with how that turned out. So that's all I have for today. Until next time, pick up something old and fix it up, and get out there and work on something.